initiative session. We are really excited to have you all here with us. Let me extend a special welcome to our speakers and panelists for this session. We're delighted to have you and we look forward to all your insights. Allow me now, please, to introduce my director, Carmen Bobano, who will open our session. And with this, I turn over to you, Carmen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edward. Let me check if you can see me. Can you see me? I can't see me on my screen. Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. So lovely to be with you all. This is the last day of the School Meals Coalition Week, which has been packed with content. It has been incredibly successful first coalition week as we celebrate 1 year of creation of this groundbreaking initiative. We could not finish the week without discussing a really important topic that has actually permeated a lot of the discussions in the last few days, which is data and monitoring. And here we want to focus very much on the specific data and monitoring initiative that was set up by the coalition to deal with this issue. I just want to say, when the coalition was created last year, governments were very clear that this needed to be an action-focused, results-oriented, evidence-based coalition. And they were also very clear that we had a few bottlenecks that were holding us back from achieving the goals of the coalition. And just to remind everybody, the goals of the coalition are three. One big vision, of course, to make sure that all children receive healthy school meals by 2030, but three specific objectives. One, which was restoring what we lost during the pandemic, going back to where we were before 2020, and making sure the children that lost access to meals regained access to those programs that are so vital for them and their nutrition and their education. The second goal was more specifically related to the gap, the huge coverage gap that we have, particularly in low-income countries. At the time, we estimated that 73 million children were missing out on school meals, even before the pandemic started. And these are children in the most vulnerable situations, living in extreme poverty, that really needed these programs the most. The third objective is about doing what we do better, supporting governments to do these programs in the best way possible, incorporating best practice, ensuring that the nutrition dimension of these programs is well embedded, but also connecting them to local purchase so that they can reap the benefits of local markets and food system transformation. So a big agenda that was put forward very ambitiously by a group of, at that time, 43 governments. Now we have 73 governments in the coalition, led by Finland and France. Now, when they were designing the coalition, there were several bottlenecks that they identified that needed to be addressed. The bottleneck number one was the lack or the need for more evidence for decision makers and better data on best practice and other details that decision makers really needed. That's the research consortium that was created specifically to address this topic, and we'll hear from them a little bit later. The second big bottleneck was financing. It was clear that for low-income countries, affording these programs is still a huge lift, and that something needed to be done to help them put together sustainable financing strategies and eventually finance these programs sustainably in the long run. So the Sustainable Financing Initiative was born, led by the Education Commission here in this meeting as well. But this session specifically is about the third bottleneck, the data issue. And one thing that was clearly identified, and Edward and his colleagues will explain more later, is that we do live in a fragmented world of data when it comes to school health and nutrition and school meals. This problem is not new. It has been identified by an interagency group within the UN in a report that was just published this month, actually, on what we know of school health and nutrition programs now, what we know of the information environment in which we're living in and the data environment, and the huge gaps and holes that we have at the moment, including fragmentation of efforts, disconnection of efforts among UN agencies and other partners, which lead in a way for governments really not having a set of agreed upon global indicators that we can track year in, year out for measuring progress in this area. So this is a really important initiative that was launched as part of the coalition. WFP leads it in a consortium, essentially with lots of partners that form part of the steering committee. We're going to hear about that in a bit. But let me just say that this initiative is the one that we think probably is going to take the longest to sort out. There are indicators that we know are being collected now by various partners. Some of them are here today. We need a more coherent and institutionalized way of gathering the data that already exists. But yesterday, for example, we were discussing with the US, the National Institutes for Health, and the Research Consortium, the need to come up with new indicators, things that we don't even have right now, including a new methodology and new ways of measuring the nutrition status of children beyond the age of 5. We do not have that at the moment globally. That is a huge gap. And we also have a big gap in the SDG framework. And we are discussing that as well with the Institute of Statistics of UNESCO and others. How can this agenda and at least one of these indicators make its way into the SDG 4 framework? So a big agenda moving forward. We think it's going to take several years to get this field of work really in a robust way. But we're starting now and we're starting strong. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the progress has been in the last year in this initiative. Thank you so much, Edward. I look forward to the session.
Thank you so very much, Carmen. So without further ado, I think we'll jump right in now to part one. There's a three-part session today. We have the first part where we'll go through the data and monitoring initiative, and we'll also hear, as Carmen indicated, from the Research Consortium, another initiative, as well as the Sustainable Financing Initiative. We'll have a panel discussion in the middle, a 20-minute panel discussion. And then the third part, we'll hear from countries and partners. So with this now, if I can get to the next slide, please. So what do we know? Just a little bit of a background on the Data and Monitoring Initiative. Carmen has alluded to this, so I'm just going to touch on this really briefly. With investments in school meals in excess of $45 billion, governments have seen the return on school meals across sectors. At the same time, they see the value, as Carmen indicated, on evidence and reliable and timely and quality data to advance and inform policies as well as their decision making. So over the years, this is not just from 2018 to 2021, but for decades now, we've been hearing from governments about this need for better data, more timely data. And consciously, from 2018 to 2021, when we were developing the school feeding strategy, we actually were talking to governments and several partners, and we were able to identify some market failures. Moving on, last year, with the launch of the School Meals Coalition in September last year, we went into extensive consultations with several partners to come up with a concept note and terms of reference. And then that led to this initiative being launched in March of this year, and a steering committee established. Next slide, please. So we look and we know we have market failures, but we only see it as the tip of the iceberg. When you look underneath, you realize, as Carmen said, we have data. Data is disconnected. We have data from multiple sources on school meals. We don't have good processes in terms of how we collect data. We also do not have agreed upon indicators or the definitions or agreement on the definitions on those indicators for school-age children. We also do not have systematic or global collection method for those core indicators. Often collection methods and surveys are lengthy and very demanding on governments. We also know that there's lack of systems, lack of processes, lack of capacity in governments. Lastly, we also see as a market failure, there's no central database on school meals and school health and nutrition. Similar, unlike what UNESCO's UIS, the Institute of Statistics, has for education, similar to what WHO has on health, there is no central database now, a UN database that collects this stuff. Next slide, please. As such, to improve and institutionalize the availability of national school meal programs worldwide for evidence-based decision-making and for tracking of progress over time, three objectives were laid out for this initiative. One, to come up with agreed indicators and methodologies. Two, to agree on processes and systems that capture high quality data. And lastly, an official global database as a global public good that is reliable and trusted, a UN database that's reliable and trusted. Next slide, please. How are we structured? The structure at this, we have in place, again, with input from several partners in putting this together. We've got representation from intergovernmental agencies and government institutions. We've got outer NEPAD, USDA, African Union, and OECD in that category. We've got foundations, academia, civil society. We've got the London School with the Research Consortium, Partnership for Child Development, as you can see, GCNF, Rockefeller, etc. And then we have the 5 UN agencies that signed this declaration on school meals and school health and nutrition: WHO, UNICEF, UNESCO, FAO, FAO, and the World Food Programme. I've listed on the right-hand side here the three objectives of this initiative and the working groups that support them. There are technical working groups that support them, and the information from those technical working groups feed into the steering committee. WFP, as you can see, is the secretariat underneath this, supporting both the steering committee and the working groups. Next slide, please. As the official reporting mechanism to the School Meals Coalition, we will have every 2 years the State of School Meals programs worldwide. It's a series. We started this in 2013. We published one in 2020. We have an upcoming publication. Please look out for this next year, March of next year, the 2022 edition. And this will be the reporting mechanism back to member states, back to all the School Meals Coalition partners, the members, to tell them how we're doing against the 3 objectives that Carmen laid out earlier, the 3 objectives of the School Meals Coalition. How are we doing against those 370 million children that we were reaching before COVID, the 73 million most vulnerable children, and the improvement of programs, and also to provide them with the robust evidence that it's part of the Research Consortium and all the initiatives of this effort on what's the new evidence on school meals and school health and nutrition. So with that, I will stop here and turn over to my colleague Miriam to just tell us, continue the journey on the processes that we've been engaged in so far. Over to you, Miriam.
So hi everyone, and thank you, Edward. It's really a pleasure to speak with you and to share with you some of the work that we'll be doing with the Data and Monitoring Initiative and the technical working groups that Edward has just described. So we began the journey by constituting working groups, and by now, right now, I'm going to focus on the indicators technical working group and some of the work that we've been doing together. So the technical working group on indicators constitutes of about 16 members that are pulled from about 10 organizations. And these are experts that were seconded by the steering committee as experts on indicators. We began the journey by mapping indicators that are already existing, and this is looking at what different partners that are working on school feeding programs are looking at as indicators. So we began the journey by mapping the landscape of those indicators, and we've selected about 5 tools and laid out about 100 indicators. And these were grouped into terms of their output, in terms of outcome, and also in terms of impact indicators. So the technical working group then had a chance to review and to make comments on those particular indicators that we had landscaped. And we also did an exercise where we ranked those particular indicators just to see in terms of priority, in terms of a defined criteria. So we had a defined criteria on how to look at those particular indicators. We're looking how measurable are those indicators and how reliable are those indicators in terms of tracking the progress of national school feeding programs. So after we did that exercise, the technical working group, we then summarized all those analyses, and I'll be sharing just a snapshot of what that exercise looks like. But allow me to also say that we are taking a modified Delphi technique in terms of how we arrive at priority indicators with the technical working group, where we have different iterations, where we review everything and we bring it to the panel. we discussed and we built consensus around those indicators. So far we have had one iteration, one review of what the landscape looks like, one exercise of ranking, but beyond that, there's also consensus building, and there's also discussions that need to happen around each one of those indicators. In terms of the first analysis, maybe to share a bit of feedback from the technical working group, after we had done that particular analysis and that particular exercise of ranking, we had a conversation where we need to expand our ranking criteria so that we're able to arrive at priority indicators that are relevant. And we also had some additional tools that was suggested by the technical working group members. The other conversation that has also been happening with the technical working group has to do with the definitions of indicators. So along each of those indicators, it's taking all the indicators that have been mapped and looking at the definitions and which definitions can we adapt or which definitions can we use in terms of how we are going to measure those indicators. Next slide, please.
Miriam, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. So I will not dwell so much on this slide, but I just wanted to highlight from the first analysis, and it's not the final analysis, it's not the final indicators that we're presenting as priority indicators, but from the first analysis, when we did the ranking exercise from the first iteration, we had indicators that mainly focus on beneficiaries served as being seen as top 5 indicators. So these are indicators that are focusing on the number of children fed, number of days as percentage total of school days, and you can see the other indicators there. Maybe also important to note, it's the outcome indicators that are related to education, on retention, graduation, enrollment, and attendance. And also those that are related to nutrition in terms of diversity scores and also food consumption scores. And next slide, please. The other parallel process that we've been engaging on is to engage with countries. So in as much as we discussed at the technical working group, we also realized there is need to hear from the countries. What sort of indicators are they collecting? How are their data collection processes, where the challenges are, so that we're able to combine inputs from the technical working groups and inputs from the countries. So we sampled by geographical representation about 26 countries, and so far we have engaged with 14 countries in terms of understanding the landscape of data collection and data collection processes for these countries. And we'll be hearing from some of the countries that we have engaged as they'll be sharing their experiences. So some of the key learnings are similar to the indicators that we ranked, are similar to what countries are collecting in terms of beneficiaries who are reached and priority indicators like education-related indicators. Some of the key challenges, which are part of the reasons why the Data and Monitoring Initiative was started, also have to do with the challenges with collection of data and transmission of that data and the delays that happen in terms of collecting that kind of information. So I'll hand it over to Edward here. Back to you, Edward.
Thanks a lot, Miriam. We will share all of these slides. What we'll do now, we'll move on to introduce 2 other of our speakers, Professor Don Bundy from the Research Consortium, and also Veronique Sauvard on the Sustainable Financing Initiative. We'll first hear from Professor Don Bundy, and if I may just ask if you can put Don's profile, his bio, on the chat so folks can see. Don, over to you.
Super, thank you very much indeed for this opportunity to talk about the Research Consortium. I feel that you've perhaps heard enough about the Research Consortium this week, so I'm not going to dwell on the detail of it. As Carmen explained, the consortium was the first of the initiatives to be developed by the coalition to provide independent and credible evidence across multiple sectors. We were delighted when the coalition decided to co-create the Data and Monitoring Initiative, and we contributed to setting up the initiative. But as we move forward, I wanted to really share 2 areas that we feel we're making a contribution in. One is through the Bond Kids community of practice. So this is a community of practice looking at nutrition in school-age children and adolescents, and there we'll be looking particularly at different measures and indicators that are relevant to those age groups, and an area that's not been thoroughly investigated previously. And the second is our ongoing studies with with countries. So we have a number of value for money national level studies, doing those with governments in some 12 countries now. We feel the insights from those will help discussion about what data countries collect. And related to that, the case studies, where our target is to have case studies for all 73 countries, and we've got 20 of those underway at the moment. So those are, that's one area of contribution, so directly to data. And the second area of contribution is to the state of school feeding analyses. So our team are part of the analyses for Chapter 1. That's the state of school feeding World Food Programme's report. Chapter 1 is the report that examines the analysis on a regular basis and reports on the state of school feeding. And we also contribute to Chapter 3, which is about the research highlights, main important findings during the year. That's what I wanted to contribute, and to say how pleased we are to see the data monitoring initiative move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Don, for a very helpful update. With this, I'll turn over to Veronique Sauvard. Veronique leads our Sustainable Financing Initiative. So over to you, Veronique. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Edward, for your welcome, and also for inviting the Sustainable Financing Initiative to join the data and monitoring session. As Carmen Bobano explained in her introduction, the different initiatives that have been created to support the School Meals Coalition have the objective to overcome, or at least try to overcome, the bottlenecks for expanding school feeding programs. And financing is indeed one of these main bottlenecks to scale up, expand, and improve the quality of school meals program. This is true everywhere, but of course, particularly in lower income countries. So the objective of the SFI is to support the efforts of governments in their commitments to expand their school meals programs. Next slide, please. The Sustainable Financing Initiative is led by the Education Commission, a body which is closely linked to the Global Education Forum Club of the main education donors. And the Education Commission support the secretariat of the initiative. And so we are a small team working along 3 action tracks. The first one relates to analyze, because we feel that there are still analyses and data, we'll come back to this soon, to better analyze domestic and donor financing. And indeed, there are lots of gaps here. Under this action track, we have contributed to a very important paper together with the Research Consortium and the Data and Monitoring Initiative, the case for investment in school health and nutrition, which fed into the discussion at the Transforming Education Summit. The SFI also conducted country case studies and a financing landscape paper that will be presented in the next session of the School Meals Coalition. And the SFI will also work with country on very concrete programs to improve financing planning for their national school feeding strategy. Next slide, please. So, what is the range of collaboration and complementarities between the Data and Monitoring Initiative and the Sustainable Financing Initiative? Well, this will be no surprise for all of you, but whenever you work on financing, you need figures, and you need reliable figures. So all the work that is currently being done by the data and monitoring on improving indicators, improving reporting mechanisms is really key for both governments and donors to better fit their school feeding programs. Another important thing is that the financing landscape shows that there are many gaps in reporting from donors on their support for school meals financing. Another important idea is when you want to convince ministers of education to invest more in school feeding program, you need to elaborate on the rate of returns of these investment, and that's exactly what the value for money studies are doing.
Veronique, sorry, but you have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Edward. I just close here just to acknowledge the great work which is being done by the Data and Monitoring Initiative and emphasizing the complementarity of the initiatives of the coalition. Thank you very much, Edward.
Thank you so very much, Veronique, for your intervention. And there's more that you can hear from Veronique. Her session is right after this one on the Sustainable Financing Initiative. So now I would like again to bring on board Professor Don Bundy, who's going to help us moderate a panel discussion between Carmen Burbano from the World Food Programme, Director of the School-Based Programs, Dr. Manos Antoninis, who's Director of the Global Education Monitoring Report, connected with UNESCO, and also Florence Musalia from the Ministry of Primary Education in Kenya. With this, Don, I turn over to you, and you have 20 minutes for the panel discussions. Again, panelists, I ask you please to keep each of your responses to 2 minutes. Thanks.
Hello there, everybody. This is a great panel and wonderful group of people. I hope I can spotlight them. I hope they're going to get spotlighted as we get this panel moving. So first of all, I want to introduce Carmen Burbano, who's already spoken. Carmen brings, as director of the World Food Programme's school-based programming, brings a very important view. That's the program that is supporting the Data and Monitoring Initiative. So that's a very important dimension, and also the Secretariat for the Coalition. So welcome, Carmen. We're also going to hear from Manos Antoninis, who's the director of the Global Education Monitoring Report and brings a global dimension to data generally and to education data in particular. And last but far from least, Florence Musalia from the Ministry of Primary Education in Kenya will be, and I'm not seeing Florence actually on my screen. I don't know if it's just my failure. Could you just check that? And that Florence will give us some of the word from the front line, if you like, a collector and user of data in real national programs. So thank you, panelists. Welcome. I'm going to ask you if you can. I'm going to ask you all the same question, which is the first question that I want you to respond to, which is: can you provide your thoughts on the current data situation with school children? What are the gaps? What are the challenges at the moment in data, collecting data and assembling data for school children? Can I start with you, Carmen, and then go to Manos and then Florence?
Thank you so much, Don. And then at the very beginning, I mentioned our experience. WFP has been working in this area for more than 60 years, supporting over 100 countries with their school meals program. And the issue of data has always been central, but not until now a matter of true investment. I think before today, before this, before the coalition came on board, fragmented efforts from various partners have happened over the years. I've been working with you and others in this space for more than 15, 16 years around this issue. And we've seen different partners have really admirable efforts at collecting information, at collating that information, etc. We still do not have, though, a coherent set of globally agreed indicators. That's something that we hope we can do here. As I mentioned, we have fragmented efforts in various places, including within the UN. One of the things that we've realized together with our colleagues in UNESCO and WHO and UNICEF and others is that we're each collecting pertinent information in a siloed way, and we need to figure out a way in which, particularly for this area of work, that needs to be addressed. But we also have a huge ecosystem of partners that are also contributing to this. So they've all come together in the Data and Monitoring Initiative to fix that. And then, as I was mentioning, something that has really come to the forefront, at least for me, and especially this week, as we've discussed with other partners, is the lack of data, particularly on the nutrition status and the health status, overall well-being of children of the 7,000-day period beyond the first 1,000 days. And we hope that's going to be a long road. It's something that we're just starting. But that's another big gap that we have that we need to explore together with partners. And so a big agenda ahead, large gaps that we hope that this initiative and partners around the table can help to solve as we move forward.
Well, that's a major contribution I think that WFP is making, and it's great to hear that it's going to be a multi-sectoral contribution, including health. Can I move on to Manos? You're the director of the what I love to call the GEM report, the Global Education Monitoring report. What are your thoughts on the current status of data on school children?
Well, thank you first of all for the invitation, and I would start by saying that let's look at a bit of the good picture. In the last 2 decades, there has been progress in the design and implementation of school health and nutrition monitoring and data initiatives. And that means we have also better programs that we are able to monitor and report upon. And I was happy you mentioned the word spotlight. You're going to spotlight me, where next week we're launching our Spotlight report on foundational learning in Africa, a partnership with the Association for the Development of Education in Africa and the African Union. And one of our 8 recommendations very much aligns with the recommendation of the School Meals Coalition for every child to have access to a healthy school meal. And we're able to set a target precisely because we have had at least some data put together for that purpose, and that's important to acknowledge. But as the first global status report on school health and nutrition highlighted this week, there are also gaps. I think Carmen has really captured the most important gaps, but if I could complement a few of the thoughts that she expressed, we also have gaps on qualitative information on policies and coverage, information on the quality and fidelity of program implementation, and on the quality and effectiveness of programs, particularly their impact on education outcomes that are also important in order to convince governments of the need to invest in school health and nutrition. Finally, maybe another point is that all of that is needed because ultimately we need to focus on also the educator sector's role in promoting and implementing school health and nutrition policies and programs. And that means a wider range, including to health education, physical education, sexuality education, water, sanitation, and hygiene, infrastructure, etc. But I think Carmen captured really the main areas we really need to work on and in which you're currently working.
Excellent, thank you so much, and great to hear about the Spotlight happening next week. That's great news, and you heard it first in the School Meals Coalition Week. So that's great, Manos. Congratulations on that. And I'm going to move on now to Florence. Florence, you're in the Ministry of Primary Education in Nairobi. You're a person that deals directly with data, both collecting it and using it in terms of national programming. I wonder if you could give us your perspective, your thoughts on what the current data situation is for data on school-aged children.
Thank you so much, Prof, for giving me a chance and the team to participate in this forum. The situation in the Kenya data collection is it's growing. We are moving from the traditional sending officers to the field to collect data, which is a very expensive exercise, and looking at the scarcity of resources, especially human and finance. And I can confidently tell you that Kenya Ministry of Education has developed a national education management information system. This system has been also growing. There is continuous improvement. It is being strengthened, and especially to align key areas to it for collection of data. And I can confidently tell you, in the school meals program, we have digitized the school meal program to this. We have aligned that to that national education management information system. And we have already rolled out this program in some of the targeted counties on school meals program. And we are looking forward, one, to launch it, and two, to upscale it. And to me, this is a very effective and efficient way of monitoring not only school meals program, but other ongoing programs in the Ministry of Education. It requires a lot of support so that officers can be trained on it, and so that all the indicators we have in the Ministry of Education, we can easily collect data on our programs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Florence. And you make a terrific point there that data is not free, that collecting data is an expensive activity, and people need to, we all need to be very conscious of the fact that when we think about new indicators, every indicator is another $1 million. We need to really need to internalize that.
True.
So that's great. That's great, Florence. I'm going to come back now to all three of you. Actually, I'm going to go to the third of the questions I was going to ask you. I'm going to ask you this question: How might your organization contribute to the objectives of the Data and Monitoring Initiative? And I'm going to start with, I'm going to go through the same order. So Carmen, and then Manos, and then back to you again, Florence. So Carmen, how might your organization, how might WFP contribute to the Data and Monitoring Initiative?
They have significantly contributed to this, because I have said that we have developed a digital platform specifically for the school meals program. This was heavily sponsored by the WFP, and I can also assure you that we have a technical support officer from WFP who assists in these programs. And training has also been done to the officers and some of the people who directly manage and handles food. And to me, this is a significant support to the Kenyan government.
Oh, Florence, that's a brilliant advert for the World Food Programme. I would say the UN system's ability to contribute to at the national level. So thank you for that clarification. Florence, I'm going to come back to you with another question in a minute, but for now, I'm going to just turn a question to Carmen. So Carmen's got a great introduction there. Carmen, could you talk about the World Food Programme's role in supporting the Data and Monitoring Initiative?
So I'm smiling ear to ear, because I think Florence could not have explained better what our concrete contribution is in more than 80 countries. The work that we're doing with the Kenyan government is very similar to the work that we're doing with all governments. And so eventually these efforts will be from the bottom up. What we would ideally like to see in the future with the technical assistance of WFP and partners is that this data comes from governments from the bottom up. And essentially what she described is what we're doing in many other countries. In the meantime, of course, we do count on and deploy and have the strength of presence in 80 countries through which we can quickly start to pull information that's already out there. So again, you know, this effort will no doubt start with a survey of some sort that collects all of this information. WFP has presence and our influence in more than between 80 and 100 countries that we can pull to get this information from. And then, of course, as we've been talking today, a number of corporate resources are being devoted to the coordination of this multi-stakeholder process. So our objective is also to make sure that it's not just WFP doing this, but it's a consultative body of organizations and partners that are coming together to do something like this that's institutionalized and multi-stakeholder, multi-sector as well.
Great, Carmen. Can I just, as a supplementary question, just for clarification on that, because this is one of the questions I've been asked to ask. Does this mean that the World Food Programme really is getting behind the data and monitoring initiative in the long term, seeing this as an important global public good moving forward?
So I should say here that up until last year, this was very much a question, I would say, if WFP would institutionalize this as part of its longer term commitment. But our corporate strategic plan, which was approved by our board of 36 countries, essentially agreed that this area is WFP's flagship work. It's a flagship area. There's no other in WFP. And that means that we will hold leadership of a lot of these areas for the globe, for the world. We will play a role of holding these global public goods. Among them, we can count on the database for school health and nutrition, which we will host, and a number of corporate resources are being devoted to that, but also the global publication, The State of School Feeding Worldwide, which we will put out every 2 years, and a number of other services and public goods that we're putting out there, including our partnership platform, which is that we're facilitating inside the School Meals Coalition. All of those could be seen as roles that WFP is committed to playing for the foreseeable future, I would say safely for another 10 years and beyond.
That's great. That's a tremendous sense of confidence then and reassurance as we move forward with that. Thank you. Manos, can I ask you to talk a little bit about your organization and its contributions to the objectives of the Data and Monitoring Initiative?
There are two things that our organization is doing, the GEM report, but that's always in a coalition and alliance with the UNESCO Institute for Statistics. We are the two organizations responsible for monitoring SDG 4, UIS doing the data collection and us doing the reporting. And we're also co-chairing the Technical Cooperation Group on SDG 4 indicators, which is an intergovernmental body that essentially discusses and debates a little bit what the interagency and expert group does on all SDG indicators. This is the equivalent for education. And in education, we have the 12 now global indicators, and we have another 30 thematic indicators. And there are only one or two that really capture the area of school health and nutrition. There's one on sexuality education. There's one on health, on water and sanitation. And definitely there is a gap for nutrition-related indicators. So we would very much like to invite, and that's, I think, a strength of the Data and Monitoring Initiative, invite it to come up with a proposal on an indicator or two, perhaps, that you feel have the strongest potential to be supported by the member states. So that's the one first thing. I think perhaps at this stage, a thematic indicator is more likely. A global indicator, there is, of course, the 2025 review coming up, but maybe the appetite is not yet there for a global, but definitely that would be very well positioned for a global indicator in the post-2030 agenda. And that's a very important point. What we would also be looking forward is not just to have an indicator, but to embed that into policies. And the big question here is how perhaps a school health and nutrition indicator can be also what we call a benchmark indicator. We have 7 benchmark indicators currently in education, and these are indicators that countries have agreed not just to monitor, but to set national targets for 2025 and 2030. And that is really a key point in essentially making our global goals and ambitions and bring them down to national level, because that's really what we need to be monitoring, how quickly countries are moving with respect to their own national ambitions, and not some vague global aspirations that sometimes are a bit too high for them to even consider.
Brilliant, thank you, Manos, and it's great to get a sense of the real politics involved in all of this, and the very positive prospects that you outlined there. I'm going to ask Florence to sign us off by asking her really the most important question. You know, you're both the supplier of data about school programs, and you're also the user of data about school programs. Do you expect that that Kenya will be providing data to the database going forward? And do you think that there'll be use for you in having access to the data monitoring initiative databases?
Prof, thank you for that question. I am acting on behalf of the minister. I'm on a delegated duty of the minister for the Ministry of Education, and he has signed a commitment in the School Meals Coalition. And on that platform, if we have a digitized school meals program, I am sure that there should be a way out how we can be able to interact with the data and how we can be able to use data. I would give you an example for the school health. We've been trying to work together, especially on the health of learners. And way forward, we are doing very well to sharing of the data, but it will be the prerogative of the Minister for Education to facilitate that to all the players into the education so that we can be able to help the learners. Thank you.
Thank you. And on that very hopeful and positive note, I thank Carmen, I thank Manos, and I thank you especially, Florence, for a great session. Thank you very much indeed. And back to you now, Edward.
Thank you so very much, Don, and thanks to you as well, but to all the panelists. Indeed, I echo you in thanking all of them. Now we move on to the third and final segment, where we will hear from countries and partners. Here we have Fatou Kinembai, Monitoring and Evaluation Officer from the Ministry of Education, the Second District in Senegal. We have Simon Mupupa, who's from the Ministry of Education, Art and Culture in Namibia. Heidi Kessler, Deputy Director, Global Child Nutrition Foundation. Diane Di Bernardo, Food and Security and Nutrition Advisor at the US Department of Agriculture, USDA. And I'm not sure if Ellie Morfield has been able to join us, who's a colleague of Diane Di Bernardo at the USDA. So with that, let me turn over to first we first have Senegal. So Fatou Kine, you have 5 minutes. If you can kindly tell us a little bit more about your program. Thank you.
Bonjour à tous, je suis Fatou Kine, chargée de suivi et évaluation à la division des cantines scolaires. Donc, à la DECAS, nous faisons tout ce qui est coordination des programmes nationaux, des programmes et projets d'alimentation scolaire. Donc, et dans cette présentation, je vais parler de l'état de l'alimentation scolaire au Sénégal et ensuite l'importance de disposer de données de qualité pour le suivi des interventions. Je vais également parler du système de collecte et de suivi des cantines. Et enfin, donc, nos défis et perspectives. Slide. Slide, si je peux... Merci. Donc, vous allez me permettre de commencer par donc, un bref rappel historique. Donc, les cantines scolaires donc, ont existé depuis 1960 et c'était un outil pour stimuler la demande éducative. Des États qui sont nouvellement indépendants donc, ont voulu comment dire, dynamiser l'offre éducative donc, par des internats et des cantines scolaires. Et malheureusement, donc, les internats n'ont pas fait long feu. Seules les cantines scolaires donc, ont existé et continuent d'exister. Et l'alimentation scolaire est considérée comme une priorité donc, dans nos différentes politiques sectorielles. Avec la conférence des ministères de l'Éducation nationale donc, du SILS en 2003, la prise en compte de l'alimentation scolaire dans la lettre de politique sectorielle du ministère de l'Éducation et les anciens référentiels donc, de la politique éducative, c'est-à-dire le PDF, de même que l'actuel paquet où les cantines scolaires se positionnent très bien. Maintenant, je vais vous parler de ce qui a été donc à l'origine de l'extension des cantines scolaires de la crise financière de 2008. Nous savons que toutes les crises financières vont engendrer une crise économique et les crises économiques vont induire donc des crises alimentaires. Et en 2008, il y a eu la crise financière où l'État et les partenaires ont voulu étendre donc leurs interventions. C'est ainsi que la division des cantines scolaires a été créée en avril 2009 donc pour pouvoir organiser l'ensemble des interventions de l'alimentation scolaire. Slide. Et l'organisation et la gestion donc, de l'alimentation scolaire est assurée par la commission cuisine du comité de gestion des écoles. Les comités de gestion sont l'organe qui organise donc le fonctionnement des écoles et ce dernier est mis en place par le décret 2014-914. Juste pour dire que tout ce qui est en lien avec l'alimentation scolaire est institutionnalisé au Sénégal. Également, on a mis en place donc, un groupe multisectoriel en décembre dernier, qui est un cadre de concertation pour la coordination des interventions et également pour la capitalisation et le partage des meilleures pratiques donc, de l'alimentation scolaire. Également, l'alimentation scolaire est bien positionnée dans les politiques sectorielles comme l'agriculture, la sécurité alimentaire, la nutrition. Et les principaux partenaires qui interviennent dans le champ de l'alimentation scolaire sont le programme alimentaire qui tient le lead. Ensuite, il y a le CPI et enfin le GRDR. Slide. Voilà donc un peu la couverture du programme national d'alimentation scolaire au préscolaire sur le nombre d'enfants inscrits qui est de 270 555. Seuls 29% sont couverts, c'est-à-dire 56 546. À l'élémentaire, donc, on a 24,3%. Au moyen, 31,2% et au secondaire, 31,7%. Donc, des efforts restent donc à faire concernant la couverture. Slide. Là, pour le nombre de bénéficiaires par partenaire, oui.
You have 30 seconds because we really are tight on time. So 30 seconds and then we'll wrap up, please. Thanks.
Voilà, donc, je vais tantôt parler des indicateurs. Donc, on a des indicateurs d'effet, d'impact et de nutrition. Et la remontée d'informations donc, se fait par nos outils de collecte de données que j'ai partagés. Malheureusement, je n'aurai pas le temps de terminer. Et dans ces outils, 3 fiches vont être renseignées dans la base de données qui est instantanée où on va collecter au niveau école, renseigner dans la base de données et le traitement se fera donc de manière instantanée. Donc, on avait une ancienne base de données dénommée Stade Balise et cette base donc a été mise à jour afin donc de digitaliser la saisie et le renseignement. Et cette base est alignée donc dans Stack qui est la grande base de l'éducation nationale. Merci.
I have to cut us off here, Madam Bai. Merci. We have to turn over now to Simon Mupapo, and we will share your slides to everyone. Thank you so much for your intervention, Madam Bai. Simon is joining us from the Namibia Ministry of Education. Simon, we will not be showing your slide, and for the rest of the speakers, apologies. We really have a hard stop at 30 minutes at the hour. So we basically have 5 minutes. Simon, if I may ask you for 2 minutes just to talk to us about your program and how you see the data and monitoring initiative supporting your efforts in Namibia. Over to you. We will not be sharing your slides. I do apologize to all of the speakers with slides. Over to you, Simon. You're on mute.
Yeah, good afternoon, colleagues, and I'm very happy to participate in the session. It's very unfortunate that my presentation is not being viewed, but
we will share. We will share with everyone after this. So over to you, please. Go ahead.
I can just quickly run through to say, yes, the Ministry of Education is running a national school feeding program in all our public schools, especially the primary schools. And in terms of data correction, we have actually been using a system, a NASIS system, that's a Namibia School Feeding Management Information System for some years until 2018 when we actually put it on hold because it was having some issues. We seems to have reworked on it, and we have actually now improved the program in order to include more variables for us as a ministry to correct more information regarding the school feeding program, that information that is actually required or needed by the ministry in terms of planning and also in terms of managing the program in general. So we are actually almost done with that. It's only that we need to resolve a few issues like of hosting the application, whereby thereafter then all the schools will be able to implement the program and actually populate the system with information on a daily basis as they implement the program. So in terms of the challenges of data correction, we have actually different ministries and offices that are working together with the Ministry of Education. We have Ministry of Health, we have Ministry of Agriculture. Ministry of Health is actually supporting the ministry in terms of running the integrated school health program. They are collecting data, as well as the Ministry of Agriculture. They are also running a program in our school that is called WASH. However, our systems seems to be, disjointed. We don't really have common a system that provide information from all these programs that our sister ministries are running with the Ministry of Education. So that is one of the issues that we have, or challenges that we have in Namibia, and we are actually working toward resolving that so that we can have some sort of standardized way of collecting information that we can access as a Ministry of Education and other ministries that we are working together in terms of supporting that.
Thank you so very much, Simon. Unfortunately, in the interest of time, now we basically, I do apologize, we're running late. So Diane, maybe I'll ask you to go up next, and then we'll ask Heidi, if in the interest of time, if we have time. So Diane, over to you, just for some final comments.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning and afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to join you today on this last day of Coalition Week. The Biden administration and USDA are committed to prioritizing nutrition security. And for us, that's defined by consistent access for all to healthy, affordable foods and beverages that promote good health. And this is supported by federal nutrition assistance programs, and school meals are a critical component of this effort. As part of the call to action from the recent White House Conference on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health, the Biden administration has committed more than $8 billion to end hunger and increase healthy eating and physical activity by 2030 through a new national strategy supported by civil society organizations, research institutions, and the private sector. USDA's National School Meals and Breakfast programs are cornerstones of the strategy. These programs reach millions of children every day. While participation is voluntary, most schools in the country participate, including virtually all public schools, 97,000 in all, with a total enrollment of over 50 million children. About 30 million children eat a school lunch, and about 15 million a school breakfast on any given day. About 60% of all students in the United States participate. On the international front, through USDA's McGovern-Dole International Food for Education and Child Nutrition Program, the United States is the largest international school feeding donor, and this year marks the 20th anniversary of its establishment. Since 2003, McGovern-Dole has donated U.S. agricultural commodities and provided financial and technical assistance to reduce hunger and improve literacy and primary education in lower and middle income countries. During that time, the program has benefited more than 31 million children and families in 48 countries, providing more than 5.5 billion school meals. For fiscal year 2023, USDA is excited to invest $220 million in 8 new 5-year multi-sectoral school feeding projects that benefit more than 1 million children across 2,200 schools in Burundi, Cambodia, the Gambia, Lesotho, Madagascar, Mauritania, Tanzania, and Timor-Leste. And now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Ellie Moorfield.
Diane, thank you so very much for your intervention. And all the speakers, I want to thank you. Unfortunately, we have a hard stop now to Heidi from GCNF. I apologize, we're not able to show your slides or hear from you. The next session starts in 3 minutes, and we've been informed that we now are going to be turned off from this session. I do want to thank all our speakers and all our guests for taking the time. We will share the slides. Apologies that we were rushed, but this has been really valuable, all the feedback that we've got from you. And we ask you to kindly stay informed, engaged on our upcoming State of School Feeding publication on the School Meals Coalition website. All slides, again, will be shared with all partners, and you'll see for the speakers who've been shortchanged all the information they wanted to share with you. Apologies again. Thank you so very much, and wishing you all a lovely weekend. Thanks to our moderator, Don, and to all our speakers.